Exactly 66 million years ago, the continuous biological history of the Mesozoic era hit a literal wall. This thin band of iridium-rich clay marks the Cretaceous-Paleogene boundary, the geological footprint of a global extinction event that permanently erased all non-avian dinosaurs from the Earth. But the dinosaurs were not the only casualties. Prior to this event, the skies were utterly dominated by the Enantiornithes. For tens of millions of years, this highly diverse, globally distributed clade achieved absolute mastery of the air, evolving complex morphotypes, specialized flight adaptations, and highly refined ecological niches. Living alongside them in the late Cretaceous were the basal neornithes, the direct ancestors of every bird alive today. Compared to the Enantiornithines, these early modern birds were largely unspecialized generalists, occupying the ecological margins of a world ruled by their highly advanced relatives. Then came the Chicxulub asteroid impact. The immediate aftermath plunged the planet into a devastating impact winter. The atmospheric soot blocked out the sun, global temperatures plummeted, and the vast, complex terrestrial ecosystems collapsed in a matter of months. When the skies finally cleared, the global avifauna had been radically filtered. The highly specialized, globally dominant Enantiornithes were completely eradicated. Meanwhile, a few lineages of the primitive, unspecialized Neornithes survived the boundary. To understand the mechanics of mass extinction, we have to look closely at this exact paradox. By examining the apex of Enantiornithine evolution right before the asteroid hit, we can see exactly why extreme evolutionary advancement became a fatal liability. We find that apex in the terminal Maastrichtine stage of the North American Western Interior, preserved today in the exposures of the Hell Creek Formation. This ecosystem hosted a massive late-surviving member of the Avisauridae family. The genus is Avisaurus, translating directly to the bird lizard. Avisaurus was a giant by Mesozoic bird standards. At an estimated weight of up to 1.7 kilograms, its physical mass, wingspan, and proportions were highly comparable to a modern large-bodied raptor like a red-tailed hawk. Paleontologists study organisms like this through the lens of ecomorphology, the direct link between a creature's precise structural adaptations and the specific ecological role it occupies. Form dictates function, and function dictates survival. The biomechanical adaptations that made Avisaurus a terrifyingly successful mesopredator in the late Cretaceous are the exact same features that engineered its demise the moment the ecosystem collapsed. Reconstructing this predator requires confronting a severe taphonomic bias in the fossil record. In early Cretaceous sites like China's Johol biota, calm lake beds preserved Enantiornithine skeletons perfectly, with pristine feather impressions. The late Cretaceous of North America offers no such luxury. The Hell Creek Formation was deposited by high-energy river channels and dynamic floodplains. In these turbulent environments, the delicate, hollow bones characteristic of birds are easily crushed by sediment or pulverized to dust during transport along the riverbed. Survival through this sedimentary filter is skewed toward the single most robust, densely ossified element in the avian skeleton, the tarsometatarsus, or the lower leg bone. When the holotype of Avisaurus archibaldi was first described in 1985 by Brett Sermon and Paul, this bone was so massive and heavily built that it was initially misclassified as a small non-avian theropod dinosaur. It took a rigorous reevaluation by Luis Chiappe in 1992 to correct the record. Chiappe identified the specific asymmetry of the joints and distinct Enantiornithine features, proving it was actually the leg bone of a highly derived bird. The sheer density of this isolated bone is the only reason we know Avisaurus existed, and embedded within its structure is a highly specialized blueprint for predation. This chart compares exact osteological measurements of North American Avisaurids. Looking at maximum length and distal width data, Avisaurus absolutely dwarfs contemporaries like Getia. Beyond sheer size, its tarsometatarsus features a uniquely low aspect ratio, proportionally shorter and significantly wider than non-raptorial birds. From a structural engineering perspective, a shorter, thicker bone provides critical resistance against the extreme torsional stress generated during a high-velocity impact with a heavy, struggling prey item. The defining predatory adaptation is the hypertrophied m.tibialis cranialis tubercle. This massive bony anchor connects the primary muscle that rapidly snaps the talon shut. We can calculate its lethality using the fundamental equation for torque. Tau equals the moment arm radius multiplied by the applied force. In Avisaurus, this tubercle is positioned exceptionally far down the shaft, significantly increasing the moment arm radius. This sacrifices running velocity for a massive spike in rotational crushing force. Avisaurus engineered its limb mechanics to function as a lethal biological trap. It secured the bone-breaking grip strength necessary to pierce vital organs millions of years before modern hawks evolved similarly. Driving those raptorial talons into a target required a highly capable aerial delivery system. But the flight architecture of Avisaurus operated entirely differently from the birds we see today. Modern birds feature a concave coracoid bone receiving a convex shoulder blade. The Enantiornithes, entirely true to their opposite bird name, exhibited the exact morphological reverse, a convex coracoid articulating with a concave shoulder blade. Furthermore, they lacked a fully enclosed triosseal canal. In modern birds, this canal acts as a critical biological pulley, allowing a muscle situated underneath the wing to execute the powered upstroke. Because Avisaurus is known almost exclusively from its leg bone, paleontologists rely on phylogenetic bracketing with its closely related cousin, Mesozoic Era, to infer the rest of its anatomy. Mesozoic possessed a deeply keeled sternum for massive flight muscles, a narrow furcula, and distinct ulnar quill knobs that securely anchored highly asymmetric, modern flight feathers to the bone. Despite missing the modern shoulder pulley system, late Avisaurids evolved highly refined, independent mechanisms for powerful, sustained flapping flight. The energetic demands of actively hunting large prey required absolute aerial maneuverability to navigate the dense forests they inhabited. During the terminal Maastrichtstein, the Hell Creek Formation was a warm, continuously humid, subtropical coastal plain. It supported a lush, vertically stratified flora dominated by a towering overstory of conifers and a dense subcanopy of cypress-like taxodium trees. The ground floor of this environment was the domain of the megafauna. Massive herds of Triceratops and Edmontosaurus grazed the undergrowth, heavily patrolled by the apex terrestrial predator, Tyrannosaurus rex. Avisaurus operated entirely removed from that terrestrial chaos. It monopolized the micro and mesofaunal tiers, occupying the apex predatory niche of the three-dimensional arboreal canopy. The undergrowth provided a vast high-energy prey base. The targets included robust marsupial relatives like Didelphodon, early eutherian mammals, small reptiles, and the vulnerable juveniles of the region's dinosaurs. Avisaurus hunted by dropping from concealed perches within the subcanopy. Striking the forest floor at high velocity, that massive lower leg muscle engaged instantly, driving the raptorial talons deep into the prey's vitals. With the load secured, its robust biomechanics allowed it to carry the heavy prey vertically back into the canopy, safely out of reach from fast terrestrial scavengers like Acaroraptor. By structurally committing to a specialized, canopy-reliant predatory lifestyle, Avisaurus bypassed terrestrial competition entirely. It found an incredibly lucrative niche, and it optimized every millimeter of its anatomy to exploit it. That highly lucrative niche vanished exactly 66 million years ago. The Chicxulub asteroid impact abruptly terminated the continuous fossil record of the Hell Creek ecosystem. The immediate atmospheric consequences were catastrophic. The impact injected millions of tons of soot into the upper atmosphere, inducing a severe global impact winter that completely blocked out the solar radiation required for photosynthesis. Stripped of sunlight, the dense taxodium and Pinnaceae forests that blanketed the North American continent suffered a rapid, absolute death. For an obligate arboreal raptor, this sudden deforestation instantly eradicated its physical habitat. The nesting sites were gone, the dense foliage was gone, the elevated perches were destroyed. The collapse of the forest canopy immediately deleted the single operational theater Avisaurus was specifically engineered to survive in. The death of the primary producers triggered a severe trophic cascade. When the foundation of a food web crumbles, it takes every dependent layer down. Without foliage, the understory prey base suffered a massive die-off. The food web collapsed rapidly from the bottom up. Stranded in a barren, freezing landscape with no live targets to hunt, a metabolically demanding, hyper-carnivorous predator like Avisaurus faced rapid starvation. Contrast this inescapable fate with the few lineages of basal Enantiornithes that actually managed to cross the boundary. The surviving modern birds were largely unspecialized. They possessed traits perfectly suited for a wasteland: small body size, ground-dwelling or semi-aquatic habits, and crucially, the ability to survive on seeds, detritus, or aquatic invertebrates, rather than a steady supply of fresh meat. The absolute biomechanical mastery of Avisaurus directly sealed its fate. Large size required massive caloric intake. Raptorial leverage was useless without prey. Ambush strategies were impossible without trees. The KPG boundary proves that extreme evolutionary specialization is a fatal trap during a global catastrophe. When the entire system collapses, the Earth belongs not to the most advanced, but to the most generalized.